He's like, whatever you want, yeah. Yeah. So first off, I was born in Chicago. I tell people I'm born in Chicago. Alabama, moved to Alabama when I was about 8, 9 years old, maybe. And that was um a difficult time in my life where I started to realize that, okay, like my life isn't just flowers and balloons and all these like beautiful things. So I had both of my parents in my life at the time, and then I had my dad got sent to prison when I was 8 years old. And then like 2 months afterwards, or around the same time frame, grandfather had passed away, which also led to us moving to Alabama from Chicago. So that was kind of like my background, early background growing up. I think for one, being raised in a my single mom for a while. When the male model is like out of the house, chances are that the child will end up in the streets or in prison increase greatly. And then on top of like a single mother with another brother at the time, and also in the city of Chicago, I'm like, yo, like that's, and I know people a lot who grew up in Chicago and haven't been outside of Chicago in like 30, 40 years. So that's why I say the odds were always against me because I shouldn't be where I'm at technically because of going off statistics. I shouldn't be where I'm at, let alone graduate high school, college, and now I'm about to finish my master's as well too. That's like, I'm just like, it sounds crazy to me. If you were to tell me that like 15 years ago, I'd be like, nah, like I'm just gonna go hoop and carry on by my day. Another reason I say like the odds were also stacked against me because of um just realizing that like man, like how important like the male role model is like in the household, or how important um the black father is in the household. And I got cousins who don't even know their dads. I got cousins who've dads been in prison as well. And like my family is like surrounded around like divorce and heartbreak and just so traumas and so many different things like that. But also realizing like, man, this is bigger than me, and it's more of like a generational thing within my family. Um, so yeah, it's not my job to to beat the odds. I think it's just God's hand. It's just kind of been like moving people out the way, bringing people into my life like male mentors and lots of coaches and all of those kind of things. And I think that's kind of been like stepping stones into becoming who I am today. So when we moved down to Alabama, it was like a lot of trauma got picked up. Of course, my dad being gone, grandfather being away as well. It instantly put me in the mindset of like, okay, I have to be the man of the house, or I have to be the person that's like kind of taking care of things, making sure my mom's good, make sure my brother's good, on top of like my own growth as a child as well too. So I tell people, I'm like, I had a childhood, but my childhood looked differently. Like instead of like playing ball all the time or video games all the time, I was like cutting grass or like doing like some yard work or washing cars or just something to like make money, but also something to add value to the house. It really got the best of me where I was just like, man, like I'm not I'm not having fun doing this, but also it just felt like to be like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid, um, and to be carrying the weight of a father figure or a male role model that's an adult is hard as heck, especially when you're a child at that young age. Um, and I think I just grew up. I thought that was a normal thing to do until I got older, and I was like, wait, that's kind of bad. Um, and I think there's a beauty behind it of like, of course, like I've always been one of like the most mature people like out of like my friend groups and those kind of things. But at the same time, like, I I missed a lot of, like, the precious childhood moments that a lot of, like, my peers and stuff had, like, going to the park with your parents and, like, all these different things, like, those are just things I was just like, I can't relate to completely all the time. I just always grew up, like, angry, bitter, frustrated, just mad at everybody, to be honest, and I was like I was a good kid, but, like, it just took one button for me to, like, just, like, explode on everybody. I was just mad, like, mad my grandfather was gone, mad I moved, mad my dad was in prison, like, all these I just started, like, naming everything, and there was a point where, I just got very sick and tired. I would just, like, go sit in my room and just, like, not talk to anybody, and I remember I used to just, like, write, um I used to just, like, write, like, harmful things about myself, but harmful things about other people, like, on the side of my bed as, like, a way of, like, speaking, because as a child, I thought, like, my voice was very diminished. I just had to do the things I had to do just to kinda get through, and didn't really know, like, I had a voice, like, in all of it as well too. I just don't have a voice to share, like, what's really going on inside, the anger that I'm feeling. Why am I feeling angry? The bitterness, the unforgiveness that also carried a long way as well too. Um, and that's when I started to see, like, like, my mental health is, like, of course, mental health during that time wasn't, like, a topic, but if I was to look back now, that's when it really started. I started to see it. And then, of course, when I got to college too, like, playing sports was just not, like, it was fun, but it was also draining at the same time, not realizing when I had an injury, not realizing that the injury was gonna force me to sit down and wrestle with my thoughts in a lot of different ways. And there was lots of seasons where, like, even my roommate at one point was like, he was going through some depression because of his injuries, and then I ended up getting hurt, and we were just both, like, in this dark cloud, just, like, going in it felt like we were just going in circles of, like, how do we get out of this? Especially when the people around you are like, "You just need to pray it out, talk to God about it, this and that." I'm like, people don't people don't really people don't really tell you what to do when you don't feel like talking to God, though, or what to do when it feels like your prayers have just, like, hit the ceiling and just falling right back down in your lap. Like, nobody really talks about that aspect um, of mental health in general or faith in general too. I saw mental health in that aspect of my life, and then I saw it with, my stepdad now, um, before I moved into college, like 2 days before or a few days before I moved into college, his father had, took his own life, which he was a pastor for, like, 30, 40 years. And that was the first time I really, like, understood, like, suicide and mental health in general, and I was like, "Yo, if a pastor of a church has been a man who loves God can go through this." I That was the first time it made me feel like, okay, like, I can experience some kinda, like, mental health stuff because it really wasn't talked about as much too, especially when you're a Christian as well too, and him losing his life was kind of like it was a weird moment for the family where, like, everybody didn't really wanna talk about it whatsoever. It was just kind of like, he died by this, and we're just gonna kinda, like, move on about it, and it never got talked like, the funeral happened, what, almost 7 years now, and nobody has talked about it ever since then, like, that situation ever since then. So, like, there's stuff like that where, like, it comes up, and I'm like, "Man, that's where that's, like, where the mental health stuff started to click for me, or it started to become more real, especially as it got closer and closer to, like, my own life as well too. And it's always been like, in me or around me, but the more I started to see the more I started to see it in, like, other people too, is, like, when I was like, "Man, like, this is" that's the thing that, like, broke my heart. It's like, man, like, you can love God and, like, show up every day with a smile on your face and still be, like, fighting your own demons, essentially. Um So that was hard, but that's kinda when it kinda clicked for me. Mm. You know, I kind of I really I understand, to be honest, because, like, even with my own life, I never I never really wanted to tell anybody about it whatsoever. Like, I was constantly, like, believing a lie that if I was to tell somebody, then I'll be shamed, I'll be, um, looked at differently, seen as a weirdo, all these kind of, like, stereotypes and, um, lies that kinda comes with topics on, like, mental health. So when people are, like, not talking about it often, I understand it because it's not a it's not a it's not a popular topic that's, like, trendy, in a sense of, like, like, nobody's doing a TikTok to a mental health anything, right? So, it's more of a people are forced to kinda sit with their own problems. I think um COVID was a it's not the teacher, but it was a good teacher for its season, and I think it showed a lot of people that it's we can perform and do work, and we can have all these different things, but the moment you sit still and you have to go back to your room and actually, like, just live with, like, your experiences and your thoughts and, like, all these things, like, that's when it starts to come alive, and we don't like the feelings of that at all because it shows as our raw and authentic selves. But if you were to think, like, man, like, if we say as much as we do in our society that we wanna be our raw and authentic selves, then we shouldn't have a problem with, like, sitting and being open, but like I said, I understand because I was always in that position of, like, I didn't wanna share anything because I didn't trust anybody with anything as well either.